Welcome everyone to the Chicago Football Connection podcast. I am your host, Steve Letizia. Follow me on Twitter at CVC Bears. Joined by my co-host, Luke O'Grady. Follow him on Twitter at Luke O'Grady. We were planning on doing a podcast later tonight, just kind of going over the trade deadline and everything, but then the Ryan Poles decided to make a trade a little early. So, right, if you missed it, Ryan Poles traded Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens for a second-round pick, a fifth-round pick, and a linebacker, A.J. Klein.
I didn't see that there was a player in the trade, too.
Yep, Justina Anderson just reported that. I mean, it's a depth piece, nothing more than that. But Luke, what are your initial thoughts?
I know we didn't even.
What's going through it?
Right on. We haven't even really
we did not
expressed what we think. It's funny. We talked about this morning about there being more considerations to just like valuation versus return with this, as far as like how the locker room was going to view Ryan Poles after he shipped out two people that he was willing to put the C on their chest and have been leaders in this locker room for the better part of 3 or 4 years. It's a locker room that's seen a lot of turnover, so to some extent, those are some players that have only ever known them as their defensive leaders. So I think. And it's exactly what we said. Is from a return point, business-wise, I love this. Second and a fifth, man. Right. We are loaded now. 2 seconds and 2 fourths. Like, to get that many opportunities to take swings in the top, 100 picks or so, give or take.
Yep.
It's just wicked. But, it'd be interesting to see how the rest of the locker room responds.
Yeah, the locker room is definitely the biggest concern here. Again, trading 2 captains within a couple week time it can get guys a little down. I'm wondering if their defense might come out a little flat next week, but they also came out flat this week. So, but yeah, from a business standpoint, it's a no-brainer. They weren't going to sign him to the contract. They could have franchise tagged him in the They could have franchise tagged him in the offseason, but they were most likely just going to franchise tag him and then trade him. So why not trade him now? Get 2 picks this year.
Yep.
From a business standpoint, a second-round pick is more than you were going to get if you held on to him and he walked in free agency. You would have gotten a third-round comp pick back, so an end of the third-round pick. You got a little bit more value than that. The second and the fifth comes out a late second, and a fifth comes out to about a mid-second based on the draft chart.
Really?
So that's a pretty good deal. So right now we're sitting at, if the season ended right now, the 12th pick. The 43rd pick would be our picks. The 57th pick would be from Baltimore. Then we'd have 74 in the third, 111 in the fourth, 134 in the fourth. That's from Robert Quinn. 2 fifth-round picks, 145, 162. No 6th-round picks from the Jakeem Grant trade, actually. And then 1 7th-round pick and then a 7th-round comp pick. So that's 10 picks, I believe, we have going into next year.
Top 130.
6 in the top 130. That's not bad. That's a lot to work with. You're going to have to draft a linebacker now probably, but I think, that's just you. I like having a GM who doesn't overvalue unvaluable positions. Yeah. Linebackers, running backs, don't pay those guys.
It's not that they're not valuable. Exactly. It's not that they're not valuable positions, but it's something that over time we've seen the teams that do that have success at those positions as well as success just on the large scale, invest less there.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
From a play perspective, I'm also, dude. I'll tell you what. I don't know if I was probably a little bit more okay with selling Roquan because I don't know if I've ever thought that he ascended into the player that we needed him to be. I really don't know if he is the all-pro player that he has been made out to be. I would almost be in the ship to say that this is a slight swindle. I don't know if maybe we haven't been able to use him well, but I don't think he's ever been good at stopping the run. He's been useful in that he can get sideline to sideline. He's been getting better in pass pro, but I don't know if has he been anything more than, well, maybe people would disagree. I would say he was a middle of the pack linebacker.
I think if you take a linebacker in the top 10, like the Bears did with Roquan Smith, you're expecting him to become the best linebacker in football. And he became a very good linebacker, but he was not the best linebacker in football. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Honestly, that's probably why Yeah, that's because he hasn't been a bad player. I shouldn't say he's middle of
No,
the
it's
pack,
been good.
especially considering he is absolutely above average at a lot of things. His sideline to sideline
Yeah.
coverage is good. His coverage has only gotten better, which is what you want out of a modern linebacker. He's also always been great at rushing the passer from the middle linebacker position, which is a cool wrinkle for a defense. I just I wanted to get like the next I thought we were getting the next prime Deion Jones kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. It came from expectations. We expected him to be the best linebacker in football. He became a very good linebacker, Pro Bowl linebacker, but he never became that best linebacker in football, kind of dominant force that we wanted him to be. But I liked Roquan. I bought this fucking helmet this year, Roquan
Yeah.
Smith signed helmet. Now that's worthless. So I liked Roquan, but it's just you got to just look at this from a business standpoint. You weren't going to pay him.
Yep.
Get what you can get for him, and you get a second round pick, and they throw in a fifth round pick and a player for depth that you don't have to go out and sign some. At least he's an NFL player. You don't have to go out and sign some bum to fill out that depth spot. So
Yeah,
I think overall, it's hard to be disappointed about this trade. From a business standpoint, I understand if you're disappointed because you liked Roquan and you thought he was a good player and everything like that. That perfectly makes sense. If you wanted to maybe make a run this year, I could see how you'd be disappointed. But the reality was always that this was going to be a throwaway year, and next year is the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think devil's advocate for reasons this was a good move. I think it's going to give opportunities to young players on the team to see if maybe we did have in-house someone that can fill that role without us having to go out and sign it. The fact that it's going to give Sanborn more reps, good thing. The fact that it's probably going to result in people seeing different reps at different positions. I think a lot of people in a 4-3 imagine that the outside backer position, because we really only have two linebackers. Our base is basically that nickel with Kyler Gordon. There's a big difference in the roles for someone like a Nick Morrow and a Roquan Smith in the defense. I'm excited to see how they reshape this now. It's like, does Nick Morrow stay home or does he kick to the will?
I was just going to say that. I'm thinking Nick Morrow always seemed more like a will linebacker to me.
And I
think they signed him and everything like that. So I'm wondering if he plays the will, Sanborn at the mic, or Sanborn at strong and Weatherspoon. At Mike those two guys. Mike Adams, those couple guys. But yeah, I like Morrow a lot better at the will position. So hopefully I'm thinking he slides over there. But whatever they decide, I'm fine with. Well, they know more than I do. So, but that's just kind of my thought is moving him over. But I am excited to see Jack Sanborn play. I mean, he looked decent in the preseason. A lot of guys look good in the preseason and never get a chance or get a chance and flame out. So, just keep expectations in check, but you got to see what you have in a guy who looked good in the preseason. And now you have that opportunity. Maybe you don't need to draft a linebacker in the top 100 next year because Jack Sanborn steps up over the next and plays serviceable. No, he's not replacing Roquan Smith from a talent standpoint, but if you could fill in and be serviceable, you save yourself from having to draft a linebacker high next year. And you just use a day 3 pick on one and hope for the best. So
I mean, to some extent too, there's been a lot of talk about how we have to spend our money. We do have a lot of cap space that we need to spend, and there's been conversations about how the wide receiver market is so weak that we are going to probably have to overpay some people that we might not love so that we reach some of that minimum spending. This is a move where it's like, okay, you know what? There actually is some quality inside linebackers on the free agent market where we can actually spend that money and feel good about getting someone like a Levante David. And saying that's a valuable place for us to have our money. We still have 2 years of a quarterback on a rookie deal. That's someone that you can go and that would absolutely fit the Flus principles. It would be a proven commodity to be basically what we were looking for to get out of Roquan. The only thing is it's that, again, the will versus middle position. What does he actually play, and what will we actually be looking for?
Yeah, exactly. And Rice kind of agrees with you. It always feels like they're always replacement level linebackers at free agency. Totally agree. And you don't have to pay them $20 million. You can pay them $6, $7, $8 million and get a serviceable guy in there. And then use your draft picks on more high value positions like wide receiver, offensive line. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
Such a treat.
2 second-round picks is I love that. I know, you might not get your wide receiver in round 1. Maybe the Quentin Johnson, Jordan Madison are off the board, but maybe you can double up on wide receivers in round 2 and hope and kind of go there. It gives you just so many options. You can trade. You can always trade down. Opens up the possibility of trading up. I don't think Ryan Poles is a trade up guy, but the possibility is there to kind of go in a lot of different directions in the draft.
I tell you what, I didn't think this deal was going to get done. I thought,
No.
it made sense, but I didn't think it was going to get done. And maybe that's just me being, we've had a lot of Ryan Pace the last little bit, who was always was afraid to ever really blow it up and wouldn't kind of do a move like this. And it did get done. So we have a day until the trade deadline. Do you think that we'll see any more deals?
I don't think so. But there are certain possibilities. I mean, Dave Montgomery could possibly be traded. I guess I'm more before today. I did not expect Dave Montgomery to get traded. After this Roquan Smtih trade, I think it's more of a possibility because they are clearly blowing it up. And then and he's paying linebackers on defense is a lot like paying running backs on offense. It's just not a great use of your money. So if Ryan Poles does think have different values on different positions, it would make sense to trade Dave Montgomery because you're probably not going to sign him either. So that's a possibility. I don't know. Ejax maybe. I doubt Eddie Jackson gets traded because he's been playing really well, but you could probably get a haul for him. But I think that would be a surprise to me more so than Montgomery. Who am I missing? Anyone else that might be thinking is on the trade block? It's probably really just Montgomery.
Someone like Riley Reef, maybe a team that was really competing, looking for that position. Like you said, Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson kind of makes the most sense just in that he's aging. The funny thing is he's kind of always been an older player. I think we drafted him when he was 25.
Yeah, he was older when we drafted him.
But it does look like he's having a bit of a renaissance. And DBs are not linebackers. DBs are part of the solution. They're part of the solution. They're not part of the problem.
And we signed him to a contract a few years ago, and at the time he was the highest paid safety. But now every time a safety gets paid, it's almost a discount at this point. So I don't know. I don't think they would trade him because safeties can also play into their mid to late 30s. So I'm not worried about his age too much. But Montgomery, I think you have to at least listen to offers.
Well, the thing is before Mustafa for 3 first.
For 3 first. Yeah, I think that's realistic. Maybe before, 2. Dude, don't get greedy.
The one thing you'll get with Mustafa is you're guaranteed to get a guy that's starting games for you. If anyone else plays better than him, something will conspire and he'll start.
Hey, availability is the best ability.
100%.
No, Mustafa takes that out.
When it comes to Dave Montgomery, man, it's like Bears. He's a Bears guy. Loves the Bears. Fan favorite. Eberflus talked about this week, how they love what they have there, and I tend to agree. I think the options that they have provide different problems and provide how you defend them differently. It's hard to say that Khalil Herbert has been Khalil Herbert. He mentioned in an interview how to pronounce it. It's hard to say that he's done nothing but show David Montgomery up to this point. And based on that Roquan move, if that's actually where the team is at, if they're willing to say, "Hey, we're building for the future," you almost look at the David Montgomery move and say, "Well, now you'd be stupid not to." Then it's a no-brainer.
I agree.
If someone like the Rams, came calling, the problem with the Rams is they might have had their season ended against the 49ers. Last night.
That's true. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. That this trade signifies that you're selling and you don't care about this year. So you would be at this point you'd be stupid not to trade David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert has outperformed him on the ground. Dave Montgomery has been a lot better in the pass game. Better pass blocker.
Yep.
Better as a receiver too, and you got to give him that. But I feel like just where they're at, you're not going to re-sign David Montgomery most likely.
We talked about this yesterday. If there was going to be an opportunity for us to re-sign him, it would have to be that he's taking a Bears deal. He's not taking a market value deal.
Right. If you can get him for a very fair hometown discount deal, you can sign Dave Montgomery. I'd be perfectly fine with that. But if you can't do that, trade him, get something. I understand if you're concerned about Khalil Herbert pass blocking and everything. Sign a veteran free agent running back who could pass block. Like that's not a huge concern for me. From a running standpoint, Khalil Herbert has outperformed him. And like you said, get what you can get because you already signified to everyone that
if you see a tweet that says, "Hey, the Bears are going to be moving on from David Montgomery," it's actually funny to be honest. Prior to the trade with Roquan Smith, it would have made sense that the Ravens actually has a player that would want to have David Montgomery just because they've had nobody really healthy there for a little bit. But having made that trade, it's not like they're probably going to go back to that same well. But if you did see a trade that came up and said David Montgomery had been traded, what would be a return that you'd feel good about?
Well, he's a running back, so you're not going to get a day 2 pick. You're looking at a day 3 pick for a running back on an expiring contract. Right, he's a free agent this year, right?
Rookie contract, though. Yeah,
but
it would be someone like the Bills that's renting someone for a playoff
right.
run with the
I
talent.
mean, I would trade him for a 5th-round pick. Like, yeah, that's a realistic trade that you could
Fifth.
probably get for him. 5th, you might. I mean, yeah, I
Getting
don't think you can
getting
get.
the
You're
fourth for
not getting
Robert
a day
Quinn
2.
surprised me. Getting fourth for Robert Quinn surprised me, and getting a
But
second
yeah,
and a fifth for Roquan surprised me.
well, I think Roquan's a better
Playing the game
player.
pretty good.
Yeah,
I actually don't even know if I agree. I think percentile
really.
wise, I would take I would take David Montgomery versus the running back field than Roquan against
Really?
the linebacker field. Yeah, and maybe that is like one of the fundamental differences. Is I just never did see
Yeah.
Roquan as that player that some did.
I'm on the other side. I think Roquan as a linebacker is better than Dave Montgomery as a running back,
Fair
and
enough.
maybe that my bias on not paying running backs and just not valuing the position is in the back of my mind. But I think Roquan was
Yeah.
better than David Montgomery. But yeah, I mean, he's a running back. You're not getting a day 2 pick for him. That's off the table. It would be a day 3 pick,
Yeah.
and so it's that's why I can go either way. If they kept David Montgomery, I'd be fine with it because 5th-round pick, who cares really that much? But if they did trade him for a 5th-round pick, I'd be like, okay, that's good too. I could go so many different directions with Dave Montgomery. And if they signed him to a team-friendly contract, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
So kind of they can't no lose situation.
6 or 7 would honestly not even be crazy. I think you could
Who's the
probably get
running
a
back?
5th. I think if you get a 4th, it's a home run.
I think if you get a 4th, you have to pull the trigger.
How about this one? Is there anybody? I'll rattle off some names of some people that are
Okay.
rumored to maybe be on the go, and you tell me if you'd be into it.
Okay.
Would you be okay if the Bears shelled out some draft capital for Jerry Jeudy?
Yes, absolutely. But it depends what it is.
I was going to say, and then also give me what you'd be okay with parting with.
Well, thinking about what he would possibly go for, Jerry Jeudy was a 1st-round pick 2 years ago, so this is his 3rd year, or is this his 2nd year?
I think it's his 3rd. He
third
tore his
year,
ACL,
so
I believe, in his 1st year.
Okay, so he would have a year left on the rest of this year, 1 more year, and then you'd be able to franchise him after that. So I don't think he's
1st-round pick. I think he could get a 5th-year option.
Right, he would have a 5th-year option. So you essentially have him for 2.5 years. He would probably, based on that information and his talent level, I think go for a 1st-round pick, and I wouldn't trade the Bears 1st-round pick.
Oh wow, really?
I think you can. There are good wide receivers in this draft. I'd rather get a guy and then have that guy for 5 years, and I'm willing to take the chance that that guy might be a bust.
Right.
But I would trade a 2nd-round pick for Jerry Jeudy probably, especially now that you have 2 of them.
2nd round? Okay, cool. We have 2. Yep. I think I'd be.
I mean, I would trade like a 2nd and a 5th. I'd essentially trade Roquan for Jerry Jeudy, like 2nd and another pick,
really?
whatever it is.
Oh wow.
I think I would do that. What about you? Would you do that?
I loved Jerry Jeudy coming out. I actually thought like this is like the model of what I want a wide receiver to be. Fast,
yeah, I liked him
not too short, like very like articulate route runner. But honest to God, he's dropped the ball way too much. It's hit him in the hands.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. Basically, my entire idea of Jerry Jeudy is coming from college because I have not watched a ton of those games.
It surprised me because it wasn't a huge problem with him in college, but it's still kind of an issue. I wouldn't be surprised if he was top 5 or 6 in the league this year on like a per target basis for drops.
So what would you trade for Jeudy then?
If you could get Jeudy for yeah, so we traded a 7th for N'Keal Harry, former 1st-round pick that had been underperforming. He probably still has more upside than N'Keal Harry, so maybe like a 5th.
100%.
Maybe like a 5th,
really? That's
a 5th or a 4th.
I mean, you're not getting Jerry Jeudy for a 5th or 4th. I'm going to be honest.
That's I know that, but I'm saying how
you would trade for
move.
Got it.
Okay, I can support that move. Like I support a 7th round for N'Keal Harry because it's the same reason I support like the wide receiver room that we have right now. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's not very good. But it's like, yeah, but I like the process. Like signing like a 1-year Pringle, a 1-year Harry, a 1-year Equanimous St. Brown. If one of those play out, then the room looks totally different. And like Harry has looked good now he's come back. But that aside, process-wise, I think 4th would be where I'd feel comfortable with like Jerry Jeudy. Okay, what about Josh Allen? Apparently from the Jaguars, the pass rusher.
Jaguars,
the pass rusher. The problem
is like Josh Allen's on the Josh Allen from the Bills.
He was like the 3rd or 4th overall pick a couple of years ago. He might even be the 1st overall pick.
No, I think it was like 7 because I think he went this. He was the back-to-back years. Josh Allen was picked 7th, and then Josh Allen was picked 7th the next year.
Oh, that's right. Like that. Yeah,
but
I would imagine this is probably pretty expensive.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's expensive, and I'm not willing to trade draft picks for defensive players right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, I'm sure there's a trade I would make for Josh Allen because he's very good, but I wouldn't. I have a feeling that
you trade
he
a
would
fifth,
go.
right?
He would go for something that I would be for more than what I would feel comfortable trading for him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you could get him, if for some reason they were ever willing to part with him for something like a third, or even, honestly, I would trade both of our seconds. It's something he is like a stud. He checks all the boxes.
He was really good.
He's ascending, and he's on his rookie deal. We have money to pay him. I'd love it. I don't know why he's available, but apparently a lot of teams have heard he is. Okay, this is the classic.
Okay, all right, what do we got?
The most traded person in history, it feels like. Brandon Cooks is on the block again.
Brandon Cooks. I'm not trading anything for Brandon Cooks.
No,
I think Brandon Cooks is a good
veteran
receiver.
name in the receiver room.
I have no interest for trading for a veteran old person. Not that he's, but like what? How he's got to be in his 30s, right?
Oh, for sure.
He's younger than.
He's probably younger than we realize, but he's definitely like 32. There's no way.
He's 29. So he's 29, 30. So
he's the same age as Allen Robinson.
I guess so. Yeah, that is a little younger than I would have guessed. He also has been a lot more productive than I.
He's a production
I would trade.
Machine.
I still wouldn't trade for him though, because you're not competing this year, so you're essentially training for a 30, 31-year-old wide receiver.
Yeah, and he's due $18 million fully guaranteed.
And he's due $18 million. I would take my maybe in the offseason.
Okay, what about Kendrick Bourne, receiver?
I would trade for Kendrick Bourne.
Patriots. Yeah, I think agree.
I think it would only take like a 6th or 7th round pick to get him.
I've also heard that Jacoby Myers might be like, there's some consideration there that he might be on the go.
Well, I want the Bears to sign Jacoby Myers in the offseason.
Right.
So if you could trade for him and get a leg up on that.
Yeah, skip the chance for sure.
But I also would probably just take my chances and just sign him in the offseason because he's a free agent and he's not going to get. I don't think they're going to franchise tag him. That doesn't seem to be the consensus there. I know Kari Thompson, he was a Bears guy, but now he's a Patriots beat writer. He's mentioned that he doesn't think they're going to franchise tag him. So I take my chances with him in the offseason.
All right, here's a go. And here's one I feel like we've heard a lot about. Chase Claypool. Are you in on the Chase Claypool hype?
I like Chase Claypool. I think his hype is not matching up with his level of play and talent. Just because Bears fans have hyped him up into this like monster, X wide receiver. And I think he's a good player, but he's just not as good as everyone thinks he is. But I would trade for him. As I know we've been talking about this for a while, but my stance would be not to trade picks for anyone. But just kind of going through this exercise, I would give up probably like a 3rd round pick for Chase Claypool. I'd be okay with that.
I think I think to some extent there are some players where it's like if they're available, they're part of the solution. It's like, if I don't really want to trade picks either, but if on draft night AJ Brown was available for a first, you just pull the trigger kind of thing.
Right.
And those players happen every year. Every year there are players that have no business being cut, and because a team is in a different place, someone needs to go. Every year there's a Stephon Diggs, or there's an AJ Brown, or a DeAndre Hopkins, or a Hollywood Brown, whatever it is. So those players will be available. I'm not averse to the opportunity to trade for those players. It just has to be the right fit. I'm glad we didn't get Kadarius Toney for a 3rd.
No, I like Kadarius Toney, but I thought that was too much for a guy who has a lot of talent but has been injured and seemed disgruntled in New York. So yeah, I liked Toney, but I'm glad we didn't pull the trigger on that one.
What about Elijah Moore?
That was the first guy I thought you were going to mention. Elijah Moore was a 2nd round pick a few years ago. He had a decent rookie year and then has not been good. Has been kind of phased out of the offense in New York for the Jets. So I'm thinking he'd probably be the guy I'd want because I think his value and what the Jets are willing to give him up for is very different right now. So I think you can get him for a day 3 pick, like a 4th, 5th round pick. And I think he brings way more value than that because you still have him for 2 more years. So I would consider that one. That's probably the one I would consider the most, just because I think the Jets are just willing to trade him for nothing.
100%. I mean, to some extent, you put your team in a really tough position when you're as outwardly on the way out as he is, because they're like, listen, you're trading him. We don't have to beg.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason I think if there's a player that the Bears trade for, I think he is the most likely one. Jerry Jeudy probably has the most trade value, probably the best receiver of those bunch, at least in my opinion. But I think the Broncos have more leverage. They won a game. They're still kind of in it. They got off their slow start, but they could really. That's a team that could really go on a run if Russ puts things together. So I don't think they're not gonna sell low on Jerry Jeudy. They're gonna stay high and keep him if they need to. Same thing with Claypool. I think they'll try and kind of sell high and keep him if they can't get rid of him. But more might be someone they just want to get rid of. So that's the guy. If they do make a trade, I think it would be for him. But I don't see them trading for anyone. I just don't see it.
You think that's I mean, do you expect that we trade anyone else? Because I don't know. You could be surprised.
Just Monty.
Peaches, but yeah, Monty and Ejax are the only people that would make sense.
I think if Bills really
see Ejax go, if someone like the Bills came calling and really needed safety help, it'd be hard to say no to that.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe the Bears would consider trading other people, but I'm not sure there's that many people on the Bears that other teams would want. I don't think they would trade Jalen Johnson.
No.
You know what? Maybe they would. The thing about Jalen Johnson is I don't think they should trade him. I'm going to say that right now. They should not trade Jalen Johnson. But you just drafted a corner and a safety in the second round this past year. You're going to have to pay them. If they turn into the guys that you think they're going to be, you're going to have to pay them. Mm-hmm. And you already have Ejax under contract.
Yep.
And Jalen Johnson, you're going to have to pay him too. So do you really want to pay 4 defensive backs? Big money?
Yeah, I know.
But
I know what you mean, but I also think that I think Jalen Johnson is the linchpin on that defense. Yeah, I almost think it all falls apart without him. What would it take though? Like if someone came and said, "Hey, I'd give you a first Freddie Jackson tomorrow."
First Freddie Jackson, I would trade Freddie Jackson for a first.
Would you? I don't see, man. Maybe because I'm I just love defensive back play is I think my favorite thing in the NFL.
I would consider it. I would definitely consider it. I think they'd have to consider that. Anything less than that, I don't think you consider. No, I wouldn't trade for a second.
But on the flip side, man, that would be crazy nice to have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. The thing is, I just love Eddie Jackson.
I do too.
I don't really buy Bears players' jerseys just because I'm so jaded from how many players have come and gone. It felt like we'd have Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey forever, and then in a heartbeat they were gone, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to have Khalil Mack forever, heartbeat gone. So I don't really buy jerseys. I have a 39 Eddie Jackson jersey.
I know exactly what you're saying. I keep buying jerseys and keep regretting it because I have Khalil Mack. I had Jay Cutler, Julius Peppers, Brandon Marshall.
Cutler was a good one. Jay
Cutler was a good one, but Brandon Marshall I had. Every time Khalil Mack, every time they trade for someone or something.
Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, and then they're gone. So I have so many jerseys. I have a Tariq Cohen jersey. I have so many jerseys I can't even wear anymore.
I've been so on the fence about Justin Fields, and I'd say that over the last couple of games, I think
you could. It's safe to pull the trigger on a Justin Fields jersey.
We got him for at least 5 years, I'd say.
At least,
I mean, if I buy a jersey, I want to have you for 20
years. Yeah, no, I get it. I wouldn't buy a Dave Montgomery jersey. That might be something to maybe not pull the trigger on just yet.
Dude, you know how many how many people with Roquan Smtih jerseys just got sickened?
I mean, I literally bought this fucking helmet this offseason. I was like, I'm gonna buy this helmet. My little thought process was, this is a pretty good deal on this helmet. I'm gonna buy it. He's gonna win Defensive Player of the Year, and I'm gonna sell it for a profit.
King.
And now I can't fucking get rid of it, probably.
Dude, hilarious. A buddy of mine's a buddy of mine's a Saints fan, and he's going to Louisiana. He wanted himself a cool jersey, so he orders himself a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson jersey. And it's he gets it on DHgate. So after 3 months, it arrives. The day it arrives, he gets traded. It's still just sitting in his bag.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta just get it from China. That's the only reason I ever buy jerseys, because then 100%. If you don't, they trade the guy, then it's not the end of the world.
This is a cool tweet I just saw. Roquan Smith has more positively graded plays than any linebacker other than Bobby Wagner over the last 3 regular seasons. He also has the second most negatively graded plays.
And I think most Bears fans would see that and
that
makes sense.
That
makes sense.
It feels like he's either the star of the game or he didn't play. It really does feel like, for example, the Cowboys game, it didn't feel like Roquan was on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, he makes a lot of flash plays, which are great, but then he also disappears at times. So I think I saw that tweet too, and it just that I was like, my first thought was that makes sense. I get that. Sometimes you see a stat and you're like, oh man, I don't see that at all, or oh wow, that's shocking. That one was like, yeah, but it kind of shows, why people have so many why there are so much differing opinions of Roquan Smith, even in the Bears fan base. There are some people who don't think he's good at all. There are some people who think he's an all-pro, and he probably falls somewhere in the middle because he makes the flash plays and then disappears from time to time. So overall, I don't know. If we're going back to Roquan Smith, it's hard to feel upset about this trade just because we kind of saw it coming, the whole offseason thing. He's already held out twice. Are you really going to risk him holding out again next season if you franchise tag him? And then you lose leverage.
If he goes and he signs a big contract and becomes the best middle linebacker in football, I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can fully live with that.
I can too, because it's just the nature of the position. And
exactly
the Ravens run like a 3-4 multiple front defense. Like I think he's going to do very well with the Ravens.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the thing with the Ravens too is that this trade is like it's a very business savvy in that they're basically going to rent him for 8 games, see if he's a fit with their culture and with their team. If they don't sign him, he's going to go and sign at least a $16-17 million contract with someone in the offseason, and the Ravens will get that against their like comp pick formula.
Yeah,
so they give a second and fifth, and they get to basically rent and find out if he can be that big play linebacker for them.
Yeah, and then they get a third essentially if he walks.
Exactly.
So not a bad deal from the Ravens standpoint. The Bears would have been struggling to get that comp pick because he would have been holding out and everything. They were going to trade him at some point. You got a second round pick, so you got more than what you would have gotten if you just let him walk.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why the deal went down. I think their mindset was if we don't like what we see by the end of the year, we can let him walk and he'll sign $18 million somewhere else and pump us to a third, comp pick. If someone's going to offer us more than that third, you take him and you guys can have that risk.
Yep, exactly.
Now the Bears have so they have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. That's a really, really awesome place to be if you're the Bears, man. It's super hard not to be excited right now.
Yep, 4 top 75 picks, but yeah,
like depending on how aggressive you want to be, the fact that the Bears are showing this kind of offense going down the stretch means they're going to be able to go to free agents and say, hey, there's something really fun brewing in Chicago here. And we have all the money in the world. They should have their pick of the litter at the free agent position.
Yeah. They have all the money in the world, and they have to spend it by rule. So
I know.
They're going to be wheeling it in.
They really have to spend it now because extending Roquan, or at least signing Roquan to a new contract, was something that a lot of people were looking at as like an easy way for them to cut some of that away. Without that, their actuals, because they're signing that signing bonus would go into spending of this year, and that's actually what they need to do is actual money spent this year.
Yeah. So Michael, big money linebackers don't get wiped down on goal line stands by Carson Wentz, who was over for me on that play. Again, that kind of what we were saying. He makes the splash plays, but he also doesn't disappears from time to time and makes negative rated plays. So, and I think that's just kind of who Roquan is.
Yeah, man, you know what? For like a better example, if you get your hands on the running back in the backfield on a 3rd and 1 run when you've already given up 30 points this game and your offense has kept you in it, maybe you're not the guy for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like and that's the other thing that we really haven't discussed. He hasn't been playing well this year. I mean, he's definitely hasn't adjusted to the new defense as quickly as we thought he could. Probably missing the training camp hurt that, made that a little bit more difficult. But your defense might not get significantly worse this year by trading Roquan, given that he wasn't adjusting to the 4-3 like we thought he would. Yeah, I mean, Roquan's a better player than what we have. I'm not saying that, but just in terms of how he's been playing, it hasn't been that good. And I expect him to go to the Ravens, and I expect him to make a Pro Bowl and be really good for the Ravens, and we're okay with that because we got value for him back.
100%. And like we said, the Bears, there is a non-zero chance that the Bears have something in Jack Sanborn. In his limited time playing against other NFL competition, call it what you will, he didn't look out of water. And something that we gain through this trade is by losing Roquan, we get the chance to give him a real evaluation heading into a season that matters. He gets meaningful snaps. We can actually say, okay, either we have something or we don't.
Yeah. And if you don't, that's fine. Most likely you don't. He was an undrafted free agent for a reason. But be able to find that out, and you can make informed decisions about your roster in the offseason based on the information that you're going to gather. Same thing with Sterling Weatherford. I know he's kind of overlooked because he didn't play in the preseason with the Bears. It was claimed off waivers from the Colts, but he had a really good preseason for the Colts. And Colts fans were really disappointed to lose him. So I think both of those guys are going to get a chance. And
Agreed.
It's kind of whoever steps up. And, maybe each one of them only has a 10% chance of being anything good, but you double your chances because you got both of them. So excited to see them. Excited to have Morrow maybe at a better position for him at weak side linebacker.
So Dan Werder tweets out that there is.
I'm sure he had a great take.
That wasn't exactly a take. His point was just that the assumption around the league is that the Bears are actually not done.
So I bet that's Monty. It's got to be Monty. I mean,
it's either Monty, or it could be that there are people around the league maybe like on the way out that the Bears are like calling phones about.
It could be. It could be.
It could also be that Monty's part of a trade that does include other players, like going and getting someone like maybe would you do well, I guess it wouldn't make sense with the Steelers, but for example, theoretically, like if it was a Chase Claypool straight up for Monty.
I would do that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
I think I would too.
I would probably do Monty in like a 5th or 6th for Claypool.
Yeah. If you're in fantasy, it probably would make really good sense to go and trade more than people would expect for Khalil Herbert right now.
Well, Michael, since you're here, which wide receiver do you want the Bears to get? Is it Claypool? Is it Moore? Judy? Someone else?
Yeah, it does. It really just will depend on who's available too. It'd be very interesting to see if there was one of those moments where last minute you find out someone's available that might not have been. It would be exciting to it'd be fun to get excited about a new receiver at some point today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It would be fun, but I do think they wait to the offseason. Michael wants Elijah Moore. He said take the 4th from the deal from Robert Quinn. Jordan Moore, certainly a possibility. We did say, well, at least I said that Moore is the wide receiver that I think makes the most sense for the Bears.
And I think I agree.
Yeah, I think a 4th.
If we get 2 years of someone and after the 4 we find out Elijah Moore is not the guy, then that I think that's a 4 well spent.
I think so too, and I think they would take a 4 at this point because he clearly wants out, and they're not, and they want him out, so they'll take whatever they get. I think a 4th could get it done, for sure.
I think I'm giddy to trade for the receiver too because, and we've talked about this, is it just seems that being that the receivers in free agency are so bad, you're either going to have to find yourself a draft crush that the Bears are able to end up drafting, which is less likely than, or is a less known commodity than trading for a player. And there's just been so many receivers on the go the last little bit. The Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, the like. That AJ Brown, it wouldn't surprise me if a name like that becomes available before the season's out. The Bears go and get.
I agree with you, but the thing about all those guys is they were traded in the offseason or on draft day, and I think that probably makes more sense. There might be someone who comes available this offseason who we did not expect. No one really expected AJ Brown to get traded. No one expected Tyreek Hill to get traded. So I think in the offseason, someone maybe T. Higgins might become available. I would love to get T. Higgins because the Bengals have to pay Joe Burrow. They got to pay Jamar Chase. It would be tough for them to also pay T. Higgins. So they might kind of take what they get from him. You might have to give up a little bit more because he is a stud, but that would be worth it to trade a second and plus for him because he's really good. So guys, and there might be other guys too, Cortland Sutton, other guys who might be available. So I'm waiting for the offseason and waiting, kind of being a little patient and waiting for a bigger name to come available on the wide receiver market. Michael brings up a good point. Mike Evans, if Tampa Bay blows it up this offseason, another guy who could potentially be available.
That's a really good point. They have a couple of receivers there that might
Chris Godwin too. So I'm waiting and I'm being patient because I think the wide receiver that you want to acquire isn't available just yet. I want to get a bigger name. Chase Claypool is a nice player to have. He's not a guy you trade for.
It doesn't really feel like the difference maker.
He does exactly. He's not a huge difference maker. Would he be the best wide receiver on this Bears team? Absolutely. But
I don't know if I fully agree. But I actually I agree with the point in that if you're going to trade for someone, you want it to be someone that makes Mooney a really, really high upside wide receiver too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm patient there and wait until the offseason.
How about this? So we trade Robert Quinn, defensive captain, and we name Eddie Jackson a captain in his stead. So now
I
we
like
lose
that.
Roquan Smith. I would imagine that they're probably going to make a move to make someone else a captain on this defense. Who do you think it is?
Yeah. Okay. Well, assuming Eddie Jackson's one of them, Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, that's immediately who came to my mind.
I mean, I think we're thinking of from kind of from fan standpoint because he's just been on the Bears the longest, but it could be a guy like Al-Qadim Muhammad.
Yeah,
I know, or like someone you don't really expect because you don't really know. We don't know what goes on in the locker room. It doesn't necessarily have to be a guy who's been on the Bears the longest.
no, and that what's funny is there was something for some reason my gut instinct went to someone like Justin Jones, and then I thought to myself, I was like, he's a first year. Like, does that make a whole lot of sense? But maybe it's also one of those things where it's like you have someone in the secondary, you have someone on the D line leading those rooms, but I don't think that he would be completely off the table as an option.
Yeah, no, I think there are that many Bears on the defense who haven't been around for more than 1 year. So
exactly,
so, yeah,
Jalen Johnson's in his third year, and he's already like one of the vets,
veterans. So I mean, you got a lot of rookies, a lot of young guys. They could easily make a first year Bear a captain. Rice says doubt they make 2 secondary captains. I would guess Justin Jones. Yeah. It's perfectly possible. Justin Jones, Travis Gibson. Michael says Travis Gibson seems like a good locker room guy. Yeah, it could be him. It could be anyone really. I think from our standpoint, it's almost impossible to kind of guess who that's going to be.
I put out a tweet today that basically kind of went through what we've talked about today, but it just said I'm okay with trading Roquan from a business perspective, but I wonder how trading 2 defensive captains a week apart would affect the locker room. Basically, a lot of the response we got was the defense hasn't been playing good enough. Something's got to give. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, we talked about. I agree with your point too. That that is something they have to take into account. But they couldn't have passed up this deal. This is the best deal that they were going to get. And yeah, the defense hasn't been playing well. So clearly, maybe a shakeup is what they needed.
That's where I don't know if I agree. I actually thought that, especially like in the second halves, which
I guess you're right.
I thought the defense had actually played. I thought we pitched a good game against. We did pitch a good game against the Patriots. We had a good game against Washington on D. We basically could have won that game with no points if it wasn't for a fumble.
No, you're right. I shouldn't say the defense hasn't played well. They didn't play well on Sunday.
It looked bad.
But that's for sure. And they also, in the previous games, they didn't play well in the first half. Yeah. To me, but the coaching, to their credit, made good adjustments in the second half. But to me, the Bears coming out flat defensively in the first half multiple times this year kind of goes a little bit to the captains and guys, getting guys ready to play, guys making those pregame speeches. It sounds dumb, but that matters. So maybe that's something that Eberflus wanted to make a change for that reason.
I mean, imagine the message in the locker room right now. You guys see what product we put out there?
Yeah,
that is absolutely unacceptable.
Right.
And do you know how unacceptable it is? The guy that we've chosen to run this defense, he's out.
Yeah. Right. He's like the guy who's made Pro Bowls in the past.
That can't happen again. Yeah.
That does send a message that if you're not doing your job, you're gonna lose your job. So I like the message that there's so many different ways to spin this. From a fan standpoint, you can spin it that way. You could easily spin it the other way too. That they weren't kind of protecting their guys and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can spin it. But overall, I think the Bears made the right move. I have seen a lot of people on Twitter. I mean, we've been on here for 45 minutes, so I haven't really checked in, but a lot of people who are disappointed. And I get that. You trade a guy who's been a Bear for a long time, former first-round pick, guy who's made the Pro Bowl for the Bears. But it's a business, and you kind of just have to accept it and move on. I think this is the right direction for the Bears franchise, and I do like having a GM who's willing to blow things up if they're not working and not just gonna try and piece things together. Like he came in here and he had a plan that this team needs to get blown up, and that's exactly what's happening.
We all kind of knew. To be honest, if you didn't know this is kind of where the Bears were this season and at this point in their season, you're probably being a little naive. It's also kind of refreshing to have a team that that isn't afraid to just say this is kind of where we're at. I will say that I had a cool conversation with Jack Wright on Twitter today about basically the dynamic of, not really tanking, but also doing things that are more process based and outcome based. Like for example, like not ditching your game plan if a game's close in the fourth, just to like do what's like required of it. And that kind of feels like where the Bears have been at all year. They're never trying to. They're always trying to win the game. They wouldn't like throw games, but they're not gonna like. I don't think they're gonna like compromise who they are or get into any real like urgency when games are like kind of getting away from them late.
Yeah, and I think we saw that on Sunday because they were down 3 touchdowns at multiple points and they were still running the ball. So
we were in the Cowboys' end and we were down. I think it was like 16 points at the time, and they ran the ball 3 times straight. Like, we got the first down, but it was like, you guys are just chilling. You guys are fully chilling.
Yeah, Michael, $85 million in dead money this year for the Bears. Complete purge. That's per Jason O'T at Over the Cap. So that's a GM who has a plan, and a GM. It might not work out. They could draft all busts next year, but he has a plan. He's going to stick to it, and that's honestly refreshing. And I wish, Ryan Pace, when he took over, kind of did the same thing, and it looked like he was going to go with this approach, and then traded for Khalil Mack and got a little trade happy. So I'm hoping Ryan Poles can kind of stick with this plan and keep it going and see it all the way through and not get impatient and try to trade and get impatient and sign guys who don't deserve to be signed to too much money and trade draft picks for veterans and stuff like that.
Is there any chance that there actually is still some truth to the Tevin Jenkins is on the trading block rumors that we heard from the summer? I know what you're going to say, and I agree. It would sicken. It would sicken me if we did. But do you think do you think there's a chance?
I think there's a chance, but I don't think it should happen. But I'm not going to rule anything out because all that stuff that happened in the offseason, that didn't just go away. The feelings that Tevin Jenkins had, just because he's been starting and playing well, that those feelings don't go away if he felt disrespected by this regime. If the regime was disrespecting him and didn't think he was good, even him playing pretty good this year, I don't think that changes that. So I'm not going to rule it out. I would be surprised though, because he has been playing well, and I view him as a building block for the Bears, one of the very few building blocks they probably have, at least on the offensive line. So that would shock me, but it wouldn't surprise me if that makes sense. What about you? Do you think there's any chance that they explore that?
I don't know how much of there is rumors that we're not done being players. It just depends on if that's coming or going. I don't know if it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but it doesn't seem in line with the other moves that we've seen so far. It seems like they're kind of like the feeling I get from the way that they've all addressed it is that even though I guess Poles did make some comments that they'll always relentlessly pursue talent, it looks like they're kind of happy with the guys they have in the building right now.
Yeah, and especially with the injury to Whitehair and the injury to Patrick, it'd really be shocking if they traded a starting offensive lineman when they were already down 2 guys. So I don't think that happens. Now that I really thought about it, I don't think that happens. I'm going to say it won't happen. Tevin Jenkins will not be traded.
I know. I mean, the only reason I worry about it is because the Bears have just been so weird about him the entirety of this regime. Even now, like like the switching of it, we even saw a little bit of the rotating. I don't know if it was injury or what it was going on in the Cowboys game, but looking on Tevin Jenkins' face, it looked like he got scolded for something. The handling of him has always been a little weird, and maybe
it always been.
Like the reports came out in the summer, he needs to do a little maturing too. But I just hope that relationship isn't spliced enough to move him, because he's been a revelation at that right guard position. He's been
really good.
Awesome would be a stretch, but he's been really good.
He's had stretches of awesome. Like sustained stretches. And then, he didn't have a great game against the Cowboys, but he played still pretty well. So yeah, I'm going to go out and say it won't happen. You can set that in stone. It's not happening. Tweet that out, everything like that. The only guy I could see them trade is Monty. That's the only guy I think they would be trading out. Not DJ Moore. We didn't talk about DJ Moore, but Elijah Moore would be the only wide receiver I'd see them take in.
Yeah, it seems like the word out of Carolina is that Brian Burns and DJ Moore were not available.
Yeah, that seems to be that makes sense. DJ Moore, if hypothetically he was available, he would go for a first round pick, and I'm not trading a top 10 pick for DJ Moore. I'm taking my chances and getting Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison and hoping they could be at least DJ Moore and maybe even better. So you're not getting him from anything less than a first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It'll be interesting to see. I wonder if you also have to wonder, what's going on, and if the reports that Alvin Kamara might be on the way out. So if one person's leaving there, it'd be interesting to see if there are other people they'd be willing to part with. There's a lot of good linemen and some good defenders, good defenders up in New Orleans.
I know he's been injured a lot, but maybe Michael Thomas could be available if the Saints start blowing it up. I don't know what his contract looks like at all, but if he's been injured a lot, so maybe you can get him for cheap. Take a chance. I don't know.
And it's like that's what we talk about when we say like that. Those are the processes we're okay with. If you trade a 5th round pick for Michael Thomas and he comes over and he stays hurt and he never works out, it's a good miss.
Right.
That's a shot. That's a shot we want the Bears taking, because if it does work, then you're the Browns that traded a 4th for Amari Cooper when stuff was going crazy in Dallas, and they said
a 5th.
Yeah,
a 5th for Amari Cooper. So that was something the Bears probably should have done. But yeah, we'll see. We'll keep it monitoring. I think that's we've been out here for a while, so I think that's a good place to stop. We kind of covered everything.
Yep.
But we'll be monitoring the trade deadline more. I'm not sure if we'll going to be able to hop on and do another one of these if Monty does get traded or if the Bears do trade for a wide receiver. But we'll be tweeting stuff out. So follow us on Twitter at CFCBears, at Luke O'Grady. We'll be tweeting stuff out and make our thoughts known. And we'll be doing these weekly podcasts as well. So make sure to like, subscribe, share. We really appreciate everyone's support. And until next time, bear down, everyone.
Bear down.